Great Demon King. Chapter 8. The Infallible 7, Winged Skeleton. The next day, Shuo was still quite drowsy and not fully awake when the warehouse door exploded open. Little Fatty Jack rushed in and started shaking Shuo awake, exclaiming in excitement, "Brian, get up. You have to see this." Shuo was bleary-eyed. He'd just been dreaming about commanding the small skeleton to beat up Lisa. He'd been woken up before he could finish the dream and complained with dissatisfaction. "What's going on this early in the morning?" Jack's eyes were the size of yellow beans, and excitement twinkled in them. He laughed heartily. "I'm not sure what Lisa did, but she summoned a weird skeleton that doesn't obey her commands. No one knows what's going on, but pilla-palla sounds have been coming from her room all morning." The little skeleton then ran off towards the Department of Light Magic, with Lisa chasing it from behind. "Oh, I swear, I've never seen a small skeleton run so fast in all my years in the necromancy department. Oh yeah, it also had 7 bone spurs as wings." Shuo had been enjoying Jack's story until that moment. His expression changed as he suddenly thought of something, and he abruptly jerked his head towards the wooden bucket. The violently colored water had changed to inky black at some point, and the 7 bone spurs had vanished, along with the skeleton. "No way. I started refining him only yesterday." He seemed to remember somewhat, through the fog of sleep, giving the skeleton a command to teach Lisa a lesson. But weren't there still 36 more days before refining a demonic treasure would be complete? What's going on? Was it because he had randomly used bone spurs instead of yin demons that had caused the magical yuan to prematurely run out? Shuo felt a foreboding chill at this thought, and hastily sat up. He even ignored his morning duties of cleaning the stone statues, and dashed towards the Department of Light Magic, pulling Jack along in his wake. Shuo's mind raced through his worries as he ran. He wasn't a necromancy student, and couldn't find it within himself to be as indifferent to his summoned creatures as the students were. They didn't care whether the creature lived or died. The little skeleton had picked up trash for Shuo, and saved him a lot of effort during this time. He had unknowingly developed feelings for the skeleton, and naturally didn't want anything to happen to it. Apart from Shuo and Jack, the necromancy students were also rushing to the Department of Light Magic. They had odd expressions on their faces as they chattered non-stop on the way there. "It's so weird. It was such a small skeleton, black, and with 7 bone spurs on its back. I wonder how Lisa summoned it," Amy said as she speedwalked. "I know. And the weirdest thing is that the small skeleton runs so fast. Oh gosh. Is it because Lisa's mental strength is stronger than ours that she can summon different skeletal warriors than we can?" Athena also wore an expression of extreme surprise, and carried on a loud conversation with Amy as they hurried to the Department of Light Magic. The novice mage Bella creased her brow when she heard Athena say so. She snorted. "I'm also a novice mage, and I've never summoned such a strange skeleton. The weirdest thing is that this skeleton doesn't obey its summoner's commands. It doesn't make sense at all." Shuo and Jack eavesdropped on the conversations as they ran. From what they gleaned from the students, Shuo understood that his refined skeleton was indeed quite unique. Inwardly fretting with worry, Shuo attempted to contact the skeleton with his mental strength. He found out that he could establish contact, but possibly due to the fact that it had been refined as if it were a demonic treasure, the skeleton didn't seem to receive the commands he was giving. It was still running around helter-skelter. The Department of Light Magic didn't lack students like the necromancy major did. Light Magic was a popular major at the academy, and had graduated many distinguished alumni. Light major students had always hated the dark major students, perhaps because light and dark magic directly opposed each other. Light majors hated necromancy majors the most, and light magic was an especially effective restraint against dark magic. Many light magics were particularly destructive toward the dark creatures that necromancers summoned. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that light magic was the nemesis of necromancy. Shuo had gained quite a bit of knowledge after returning to the necromancy major, and understood the concepts that were common knowledge to necromancy studency. However, knowing all this made his heart grow heavy with worry. Shuo practically flew down the road as he dragged Jack along. His speed was such that his frail body even passed by a few necromancy students. The ones left in his wake gaped in surprise, thinking, when did this idiot get so strong after he went crazy? When Shuo had dragged Jack all the way to the Department of Light Magic, Jack was utterly exhausted. He planted his butt firmly on the ground and panted heavily, complaining continuously, "Brian, you run so fast. You almost dragged me to death, and you're not even sweating." As Shuo's attention was completely preoccupied by the little skeleton scampering up and down all over the Department of Light Magic buildings, He completely ignored Jack's complaints. A short skeleton, with a body as black as ink, 7 bone spurs stuck in its spine, and wielding a faintly glowing bone dagger, was dashing to and fro in the middle of the courtyard. The black skeleton emanated a faint glow thanks to Han Shuo's refinement. The bone spurs had stuck on its back, melding completely with the spine, as if they had always belonged there. 2 leg bones extended like springs when it moved, and the 7 bone spurs would flap busily, aiding its movement. Although they weren't enough to help it fly, they raised its speed, so that the skeleton was very nimble. Even Lisa, following in hot pursuit, missed several necromancy spells. Numerous light major students and stone pillars decorated with intricate reliefs stood in the courtyard. The little skeleton adroitly weaved in and out between students and pillars with an eerily agile body, leaving Lisa helpless. Han Shuo was also dazed upon seeing the little skeleton's speed, and then quickly gathered his concentration to order the skeleton back to the warehouse. Unfortunately, it seemed that the little skeleton was unable to receive his commands and continued to flash between students and pillars, making the light major students run around in utter disarray. It was sheer pandemonium in the courtyard. Lisa, you necromancy students are becoming more and more presumptuous. How dare you release this filthy dark creature into the midst of the Department of Light Magic? Are you still smarting over last time's loss against me and wanted to show off how good your skeletal warrior is? Novice light mage, Irene said coldly, staring at Lisa with provocation. Irene was 17 and had a bob of light blue, slightly messy locks. She had beautiful bangs resting against her forehead and sky blue eyes that were akin to 2 brilliant sapphires. She wore the hallowed robe of light magic and had set a diamond-shaped sapphire in the collar. It sparkled with a misty blue light that matched and brought out her eyes, making her appear even more beautiful. Another young beauty. Han Shuo glanced at Irene and started mentally comparing her against Lisa. Irene matched up to Lisa in every way and showed a burgeoning bosom that was much fuller than Lisa's. Irene, keep your nose out of my business. Don't think I'm scared of you just because you come from the Camplin family. Lisa paused from chasing the little skeleton and sneered right back at Irene. Oh, filthy dark creatures are forbidden from sullying the Department of Light Magic. If you're unable to take it away and dismiss it, then let me give you a hand. Irene raised her hands with a noble expression and slowly started chanting. Razors of light, become a sword that purifies evil. Cleave this pathetic life. Radiant slash. A long sword made entirely of blinding light appeared after Irene finished her incantation. It swiftly flew toward the skeleton under Irene's command. Han Shuo's skeleton had been playing hide-and-seek and stopped dumbly when Lisa had stopped. It didn't seem to react when Irene's light sword rushed toward it, and the sword stabbed solidly into its ribcage. The softly glowing black skeleton suddenly flared faintly when the longsword connected, and the longsword disappeared. A bit of smoke rose from its chest as the skeleton swayed a bit from the hit. When it regained its footing, it clutched the dagger and glanced around, as if trying to see who had hit it. Who? That dark creature didn't immediately fall to pieces when the holy light of light magic hit it. Yaha, this is so weird. Light magic is the nemesis of dark creatures. Its frame should have turned to dust under the holy light. What is going on? Is it possible that the necromancy major has researched a way to make dark creatures immune to the holy light of light magic? How is that possible? If this is the case, then necromancy's dark creatures will be ridiculously strong. Han Shuo looked around and saw that the light major students around him all wore expressions of fright. They stared incredulously at the little skeleton that was peering around. Necromancy's dark creatures not only took normal damage from light magic, but additional injury would be inflicted as well. Higher-level dark creatures would start to rot, but something as low-leveled as a skeletal warrior should have turned into ashes immediately. But the little skeleton that Han Shuo had refined, according to the rules of refining demonic treasures, upended the normal laws of magic, and proved an impossibly incredible thing to light and necromancy major students. Exclamations of shock and bewilderment poured out of the light major students. Even Lisa stood there dumbly, unnerved by this infallible skeleton. But just as everyone was reacting in surprise, the little skeleton had finally found out who had hit him after a few moments of looking around. It rushed toward Irene with its 5 bone fingers clutched firmly around the coldly glowing bone dagger, and the 7 bone spurs flapped furiously to again give it speed beyond a normal skeletal warrior's. It arrived in front of Irene, grasped the dagger in its palm, and fiercely stabbed toward the dismayed Irene. Irene panicked and frantically threw herself to the left, knowing she had no time to chant again upon seeing that the skeleton had already arrived in front of her. A tearing noise sounded, as Irene squealed in fright. The little skeleton didn't successfully stab Irene thanks to her quick dodge. However, it had torn the robe from her right shoulder down to her chest, revealing dewy, creamy skin. There was even a small piece of snow-white undergarment dangling on the tip of the bone dagger. The skeleton stood there dumbly again and didn't follow up on the attack. Damn. Well done. Slash you with a light sword, huh? Slash all her clothes to ribbons in return. Han Shuo exulted inwardly. Han Shuo suddenly felt his mental strength sharpen along with those thoughts. He saw the little skeleton snap to attention, grasp the dagger again, and spring toward an embarrassed Irene desperately trying to cover herself up. It was obvious that it wanted to execute Han Shuo's order, to slash all her clothes to ribbons. Ha! Now it receives its commands, that lecherous skeleton.